Hello, today I'm going to be talking about the heart and the path of blood throughout the heart, as well as the histological composition of the heart. So, kind of to start off, we know that the heart is a muscle and it pumps blood through two circuits. We have the pulmonary, which that just means lungs. And the systemic. So, the heart basically has two circuits, the pulmonary circuit and the systemic circuit. The pulmonary circuit is where the heart pumps blood to in order for the blood to pick up oxygen, and then it takes the blood through the systemic circuit, which is essentially the rest of your body, so that it can deliver the oxygenated blood. When the blood comes back to the heart deoxygenated, it'll then get routed back through the lungs to pick up more oxygen. So basically, if we're talking about the systemic circuit, we're talking about delivering blood to any part of the body that is not the lungs, and the pulmonary specifically to the lungs. So for the histological composition of the heart, let me just kind of draw a layer here. And if this is the inside and this is the outside of the heart, basically we're going to have four layers like that. Kind of like that. So if all of these are different layers, this layer inside is endocardium. Now that makes sense because, you know, when we think of the heart, it's, you know, cardio, like running, like working out, like cardiac arrest, so cardium. And so cardium just means heart, and then endo, as we know, just means inside. So that's why the innermost layer is called endocardium, and that is composed of endothelial tissue and also some areolar tissue. Then the next layer in here is myocardium. And then of course myocardium just means muscle, hence the myo. So cardiac muscle. So that's muscle right there. Then the next layer, draw the green layer here, that is epicardium, and that's just a simple squamous tissue that actually sits on some areolar tissue as well. So this is going to be epicardium. Again, cardium for heart, and then epi meaning above, on the outside, versus the endocardium, which is on the inside. And then of course the outermost layer here, which would be this layer here, that's going to be fibrous pericardium. And so pericardium. And of course, again, cardium for heart, and then peri we know means around from Latin. So basically, if this was a slice of the heart, and this being the inside and this being the outside, the innermost layer is endocardium. Then the next layer is myocardium, which is specifically, you know, cardiac muscle. And then next we would have epicardium, and then finally on the outermost layer we would have pericardium. And again, peri meaning around. This is going to be dense regular connective tissue. So we have endothelium in the inside with areolar, then cardiac muscle, and then simple squamous, and then dense regular connective tissue, basically, you know, for protection. So now I want to cover the different chambers of the heart, and then we can follow the path that blood would take. So the way I like to remember, instead of trying to, you know, of course, like when you look at an actual heart, if you're taking anatomy and you're actually looking at like a pig's heart, you know, it's a lot different when you look at a model. But if you memorize it this way and you remember exactly what goes into each chamber and what comes out of each chamber, then all you have to do when you look at the actual heart is know which chamber. All you have to do is recognize the chambers, and then from then you can figure out exactly, you know, what's coming in and going out, because you already know, hey, the right atrium always has these three things coming into it, so where are those? All right, so next I want to go over the different chambers of the heart and actually follow the path that blood would take when going through the heart and then, you know, to the body and to the lungs, and so that we can memorize it this way. I like to draw it this way. I'm going to basically draw the heart like a box, like a square, and then we can just memorize exactly what goes in and out of each chamber, and I think it's a lot easier to visualize it this way than actually trying to memorize it from the way the actual heart looks. So I'm going to start by drawing a box. And we know that there's 4 chambers. Okay, so there's 4 chambers in the heart. So we know that there's 2 chambers on top and 2 chambers on the bottom. The atria are on top and the ventricles are on the bottom. And atrium receives blood and ventricles pump blood. And so that's always the case. So the ventricles are always going to be pumping blood and the atriums are always going to be receiving blood. So, and then also we know that, like, if you're looking at the heart, typically this would be the left, but since you're actually, we call the left side of the heart the part that's on the left side of the body. So it's actually reversed when you're referring to the heart, but looking at it, you know, from this way. So this is actually the left atrium. I'm just going to write LA for left atrium. And then this is the left ventricle. This would be the right atrium. And then this would be the right ventricle. So like I said, when you're trying to memorize the path that blood takes, if I were you, I would just look at it this way. I always felt that this was the easiest way, you know, to learn it. So here we have the 4 chambers, atrium on top and ventricles on bottom. So now all we need to know is the following. We have 3 things coming into the right atrium. Four things coming into the left atrium. We have 1 thing leaving the left ventricle. And we have 1 thing leaving the right ventricle. So that's basically all you need to remember, and now we can, you know, just visualize what exactly comes in where. These arrows are going to represent the different vessels that the blood is going to be traveling through. Now, in addition, remember that there's valves inside the heart. So here we're going to have a valve, and then here we're going to have another valve. And I drew them differently. This one I drew with 3 peaks because it's literally called the tricuspid valve. And then this one I drew with 2 peaks because it is the bicuspid valve. So, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But we also are going to have a valve here and another valve here. So, remember, draw your 4 chambers, 3 arrows, 4 arrows, 1, 1, and then the 4 valves. And that's basically all there is to the heart. So now, now we just have to attach names to each one of these vessels or valves and understand the path that blood is taking. So, as I mentioned, that there's 2 circuits, the pulmonary and the systemic. So if we're looking at the heart, the right atrium is going to be the first chamber that receives blood from the body. So remember that arteries, some people mistakenly say, oh, okay, arteries are red, therefore oxygenated, and veins are blue, therefore deoxygenated. Well, that's not always necessarily the case, and I'll bring that up in a second. Basically, in the case that pulmonary veins actually come into the heart, so therefore you might think, oh, pulmonary veins deoxygenated, but that's not true. Pulmonary veins are actually carrying some of the most oxygenated blood because they're coming straight from the lungs to the heart. So the best way to remember this is arteries away. So arteries take blood away from the heart, and veins bring blood back to the heart. So that's the best way to remember it. So arteries take blood away, veins bring blood to the heart. Don't think of them as red and blue and oxygenated and deoxygenated.